Gabriel Winters sat in the lobby of the Crescent Bay Hotel, reading the financial section of the newspaper with the same unwavering focus that had made him one of the youngest and most successful CEOs in the country. At 36, he ran Winters Holdings, a luxury real estate empire his late father had founded, one Gabriel had expanded threefold. The Crescent Bay was one of his latest acquisitions, a historic seaside property he was transforming into an exclusive boutique hotel. He was there that morning for final walkthrough meetings before the grand reopening. Everything had to be flawless. That was how Gabriel operated, with precision control and zero tolerance for mistakes or sentimentality. His personal life reflected that same philosophy. After a short, failed marriage in his 20s, Gabriel had decided relationships were distractions from building his legacy. He worked 16-hour days, traveled constantly, and filled his rare free time with predictable, manageable activities: golf with investors, charity galas that improved his image, dinners that doubled as business meetings. He lived by order, not emotion. He was so absorbed in an article about commercial real estate trends that he didn't notice the little girl standing in front of him until she spoke. "Excuse me, sir," said a small but determined voice. "Can you read this letter? It's very important." Gabriel looked up, startled. The child was perhaps 4 years old, with honey blonde hair pulled into pigtails tied with blue ribbons. She wore a pale yellow dress that looked like it had been chosen for a special occasion, and her hazel eyes were wide and serious beyond her years. "I'm sorry, sweetheart," Gabriel said, lowering his paper. "I'm quite busy. You should take that to your parents. Please," the little girl persisted, still holding out the envelope with both hands. "It's for my mommy, but I can't read all the words yet. Miss Clara says it's very important and someone has to read it today." Something in her voice made Gabriel pause. He folded the newspaper and studied her face. There was an urgency there, a burden no child that young should have to carry. "Where is your mother?" he asked softly. "She's sleeping upstairs," the girl said. "She's been sleeping a lot. Miss Clara says Mommy is very sick and might have to go to heaven soon, like Daddy did." Gabriel felt something tighten in his chest. The little girl spoke of death with the innocent acceptance of someone too young to fully understand, yet somehow aware of its weight. "What's your name?" he asked gently. "Lila Grace Bennett," she said carefully, like she'd practiced. "But everyone calls me Lila. I'm 4. "Well, Lila," Gabriel said, "why don't you sit down here and show me this letter?" Lila climbed onto the chair beside him, setting the envelope neatly on her lap. "Miss Clara is the lady who brings Mommy her medicine. She gave me this and said I had to find someone kind to read it because it tells what happens to me when Mommy goes to heaven." Gabriel's hands weren't steady as he took the envelope. The return address read, Department of Child and Family Services. Dread began to settle over him as he opened it. The letter explained that Lila's mother, Emily Bennett, had terminal cancer. She'd been living at the hotel after losing her apartment, her savings gone, her insurance expired. Emily had applied for emergency foster care for Lila, since she had no family left to take her. There was a handwritten note at the bottom, presumably from Miss Clara, explaining that Emily was too weak to finish the paperwork and someone needed to help her. Time was running out. Gabriel stared at the letter in silence. This little girl, dressed so neatly and clutching her hope in the form of an envelope, was about to lose her mother and be sent into foster care with no one to hold her. "Can you read it to me?" Lila asked quietly. "Miss Clara said I'm too little to understand, but I want to know." Gabriel couldn't do it. He couldn't tell a 4-year-old that her mother was dying and she'd soon live with strangers. "It's a letter about making sure you're taken care of," he said gently. "Your mommy loves you very much and wants to keep you safe, even when she goes to heaven." Lila asked. Especially then, Gabriel said, his voice rough with emotion. Will you come meet her? Lila asked, slipping her small hand into his. Miss Clara said someone needs to help with the papers. You seem nice. You have kind eyes. For a long moment, Gabriel said nothing. Then something inside him, something he'd buried under years of ambition, stirred. Yes, he said quietly. I'll come meet your mother. Lila led him to the elevator and pressed the button for the 3rd floor. She chattered softly on the way up, about the lullabies her mother sang, about the stars they wished on together. About how Mommy always said she was a brave girl. I don't feel brave, she whispered as they walked down the hall. I'm scared about heaven. Is it far away? I don't know, Gabriel said after a moment. But I think people who love us don't really go away. They stay with us, just in a different way. Lila's room was at the end of the corridor. She opened the door with a key she wore on a pink ribbon around her neck. Inside, the space was small but neat. On the bed lay a woman whose beauty was still visible beneath her illness, her skin pale, her breath shallow. Beside her sat an older nurse in scrubs. Lila, sweetheart, you shouldn't bring strangers, the nurse began, then stopped when she saw the letter in Gabriel's hand. Oh, you found someone to help. I'm Gabriel Winters, he said. I own this hotel. Lila asked me to read this. Emily Bennett's eyes opened. Even weak, her gaze was full of love when it fell on her daughter. You didn't need to trouble anyone, baby. He's not troubled, Mommy, Lila said proudly, climbing onto the bed. He has kind eyes. He's going to help us. Over the next hour, Gabriel learned their story. Emily's husband had died in a construction accident before Lila was born. She'd worked as a teacher until her diagnosis. When the treatments failed, she'd sold everything to keep a roof over their heads. She was out of time and options. I have maybe a week, she said softly. I've made peace with that. But I can't make peace with Lila being sent into the system. She has no one. Gabriel looked at the sleeping child beside her and thought of his own empty penthouse. The sterile spaces of his life filled only with success and silence. What if she didn't have to go into the system? He asked quietly. Both women looked at him. What if someone wanted to adopt her? He continued. Someone who could give her a home, stability, love? Emily's breath hitched. Are you saying you would do that for a child you just met? I'm saying I want to help, Gabriel said simply. I can make sure she's safe. Over the next 3 days, Gabriel put his entire business on hold. He hired the best family lawyer in the state, met with social workers, and began the process of emergency adoption. He spent every spare moment at the hotel with Emily and Lila, learning bedtime songs, listening to stories, promising Emily that her daughter would never be alone. Why are you doing this? Emily asked one evening, her voice barely above a whisper. Because I spent 15 years building a fortune, Gabriel said quietly. But somewhere along the way, I stopped being human. And then your daughter handed me a letter and reminded me what actually matters. Emily's eyes filled with tears. She'll need so much patience, so much love. I know, he said, and I'll give her all of it. I promise she'll always know who you were and how deeply you loved her. You'll be a good father, Emily whispered. Thank you for giving me peace. 5 days later, Emily Bennett passed away peacefully. Gabriel sat with Lila in the quiet lobby when Miss Clara gently told the child that her mommy had gone to heaven. She's with Daddy now. Lila asked softly. Yes, sweetheart, Miss Clara said. Lila turned to Gabriel. Will you still help me? Or was that just when Mommy was here? Gabriel gathered her into his arms. Lila, he said softly, I made a promise to your mother. I'm going to be your daddy now, if that's okay with you. Forever, she whispered. Forever and ever, Gabriel promised. 3 months later, the adoption was finalized. Gabriel turned his sterile penthouse into a home, filled with toys, books, laughter, and love. He learned to braid hair, host tea parties, and read bedtime stories again and again when Lila couldn't sleep. Slowly, she healed. The pain never vanished, but the fear did. She was safe. 2 years later, Gabriel stood at Lila's kindergarten graduation, watching her receive a certificate for kindness. On her All About Me poster, she had written, "My mommy Emily is in heaven with my daddy. My daddy Gabriel takes care of me now. He has kind eyes." His business partner found him wiping tears from his eyes. "You've changed, Gabriel. 2 years ago you would have scheduled this around a meeting." 2 years ago, Gabriel said, smiling through the tears, "I was successful, but empty." A little girl in a yellow dress handed me a letter and gave me the chance to be someone's world. That success that actually matters, because sometimes the most important letters aren't written on company letterheads or business contracts. Sometimes they're handed to you by a child who trusts you with her entire future, who reminds you that real strength isn't found in walls or ambition, but in the courage to open your heart and answer the call of love.